So recently, because my 30th birthday is coming up in about 6 months, been thinking about what I want to do for my 30th birthday. And skydiving seems to be something that I've always wanted to do. Despite all the fear and whatever, I've just always wanted to go skydiving. And I've looked in the area for skydiving places and so on, but it's just something that I've been talking with my wife about, possibly taking the family, whoever wants to go, and go skydiving. But so that's something that I've just been thinking about, and I had this dream a few nights ago, and it wasn't lucid, but it was a pretty cool dream. It was different. I was flying in this what looked like a military cargo plane. It had the four propellers. You could hear the motors, the rotary motors going pretty loud. And I remember it was a rough ride. It was clanky. You could hear the air. And I was in this area with all of these people who were dressed in, they looked like World War II uniforms. And I remember thinking to myself, I've got this parachute on, but I know that it's not going to open. And I had the feeling in the room that everybody knew that but didn't want to tell me. They wanted me to jump anyway, almost as if they were trying to get rid of me. So I look to the front of the plane, to the cockpit, and I see the pilot there, and he's flying the plane. And I start to walk towards the cockpit because I wanted to ask him about this this parachute. And some guy stood up and put his hand out and said, "Do not walk any further." And I said, "All I want to do," and he said, "Stop! Don't walk any further." That's all. And he had a hand on his gun. And so I said, "Okay, fine, whatever." And I sat down. I'm looking across at this guy, and he's got this smirk on his face, and it's hard to explain the face that he had, but it was a really evil smirk. And I knew right then that if I didn't get off this plane, that I was in fact going to die. So I pulled out my gun and I pointed it at him. And I said, "If anybody moves, I'm going to shoot this guy. And I'm going to take out as many of you as I can before you take me out." And everybody just kind of paused. And I told the guy, I said, "Take off your parachute." And he's doing this. I said, "You take off your parachute, or I'm going to put one right between your eyes." And and the pilot was standing there, which was weird, and I don't know who was flying the plane, but suddenly the pilot was standing there. And he looked up at the pilot, who seemed to be almost a commanding officer, and the pilot just kind of, and this guy started crying as he's taking off his parachute, and I could tell that he didn't want to. And I took off my parachute, and I threw it at him, and I said, "You put this on." And I grabbed his parachute, and I put it on, and I felt like everybody was starting to close in on me. So I fired a shot straight in the air, and then I fired at the door, and there was a lock on the side of the door where you jump out, which was weird. But I fired at that lock, the door sprung open, and I just kind of jumped out. And I remember looking straight down, and it was I can't explain. It was like I was floating. I knew that I was falling. I felt like I was falling, but it was more of a float than it was just a fall. And I was facing down. My stomach was facing towards the ground, and I flipped myself over, and I look up, and the plane was on fire, and I could see people jumping from this plane. Well, I said to myself, I I'm waiting for that one guy with that parachute that I gave to jump out to see exactly what happens. Well, sure enough, he jumps out. I knew it was him, and he went to go open up his parachute, and a whole bunch of, and this is comedical here, a whole bunch of knives and forks and whatever started spraying out of this parachute. And I think that goes back to a Family Guy episode that I saw, but I saw him just literally just fall right down to his death. And of course I had my parachute and I opened it up and it seemed to work okay, but then all these soldiers or whoever started coming after me. And I knew that I was going to be in trouble. And it was right about that time that I looked down, I looked back up at him, and I could see him coming after me, and then I woke up. And it wasn't lucid at all, but it was just a weird dream. I suppose I'm a little scared of skydiving, but you know, after doing all the research about skydiving that I have, it's, you know, less than, you know, I don't quote me on this, I'm trying to remember it, but out of 100,000 jumps or 1,000,000 jumps or something like that, only one turns out to be the parachute won't open, and you know, there's the lollipop that goes with it, and a lot of it would be the user error. Most of the deaths that occur because of that are user error. So yeah, that was that was pretty much it for the dream.